The content presented in this podcast and YouTube show is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the guidance of your physician or other qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding your health or a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard or seen on this show. If you think you may have a medical emergency, call your doctor or emergency services immediately. The host, guest, and producers of this show are not responsible for any adverse effects resulting from your use of or reliance on any information presented.
Andrea, can you hear us?
Many years ago, I died for 26 seconds. There are so many people in this world that have experienced life events that have led to their soul purpose. Wake Up Your Soul with Andrea will bring you these significant life events that demonstrate how to use those moments for guidance and life purpose. These are our stories. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Wake Up Your Soul with Andrea. Today's guest is sure to motivate and inspire you with having lost over 100 pounds while doing so as an amputee. Please welcome our guest, James Fomby.
Hey,
Well,
Andrea.
hi, how are you?
I'm doing great.
I'm so excited to have you here today because your story is something that is so inspirational. And I'd love for you to just start from the beginning when the accident happened and when you were hit by the truck.
Oh, sure. Start just introducing myself. My name is James Fomby. I've been an amputee since I was 18. I'm 56 now. But just to go back to when it first started, just imagine bopping around in your teenage life and then suddenly a semi takes your right leg off.
You said when we had talked before, you were on a bike. Is that right?
I was on a motorcycle.
A motorcycle.
So,
Okay.
yes. I was on a motorcycle. I was actually hit by a semi on a motorcycle. I was at a red light and in my hometown, and I was on my way to work, and well, that's when it happened. So it was about 1 p.m. in the afternoon. I was on my way to work.
When this accident happened, do you remember anything or were you completely unconscious right away?
I was sitting at the red light, and suddenly I feel a rustling of air on my right side, and I turn. And I'm literally looking at a semi tractor trailer in my face, like,
Oh,
you know,
wow.
I could literally, kiss it almost, and then suddenly I blacked out. But when I woke up, there was a guy. He had his hands down around my leg, holding it because it was crushed and hurting really bad. I was laying out on the asphalt, and they loaded me up into the ambulance. And one of the problems with where I live, it's a very rural area.
Mhm.
Um, they rushed me over to the small hospital, but that guy wasn't equipped really to deal with this type of injury.
Okay.
So I had to sit in the ambulance for another 45 minutes as they rushed me to the nearest town.
Okay.
One of the things that very touching moment that happened. I was 18 years old. I was raised by my dad was in the Navy, military guy, almost like a drill sergeant, really tough. Never seen this guy cry at all. And suddenly I'm 18 years old. I'm laying on a gurney and my dad is just tears just gushing out his eyes because he couldn't do anything. His son's hurt and he's like one of those guys that could do anything. I learned that from him. It's like, if you want something done, you just do it. When here I was laying on the gurney and my dad was just crying profusely.
That's
That
one of the hardest moments as a parent, right? When you are
exactly.
completely out of control. So I have a question. Going back to that day I don't know how bad this was. So was there any chance your leg could have been saved if you would have gone to a different hospital since you're saying the hospital wasn't really equipped? Or was there just no way it would have been saved?
That's a great question, actually. I'm glad you asked that because That particular hospital wasn't equipped, but they rushed me over to McAllister, and Dr. Sauer actually was my doctor, very good doctor. He went into surgery, and like one of the problems is with that type of injury, it literally had taken my foot off, and he surgically put that back together. It was like multiple hours he sat in there, and I could wiggle my toes. I kept my leg for 2 weeks.
Oh,
But
wow.
what happened? Yeah, what happened is it got infection setting up in it, and then they had to take it off. He let me make that decision though too. I was 18 years old, and he let me make that decision, and he told me he was telling me, "We can keep working on this. We can go and try to, fight the infection and keep working on this." He said, "But son, I'm gonna tell you, you're gonna get around better on that prosthesis versus us trying to save. We cut so much of the muscle off the calf. There's not a lot there." And I immediately made this decision. I said, "Take it off. Just take it off right there." I knew myself, and I just didn't picture myself as dragging that around. If he saved it, I wanted the prosthesis.
I can understand that. What were those 2 weeks like where you still had your leg, but you knew you might not be keeping it? I mean, you sound like you were easily on board to go ahead and have it removed, but were there moments where you were frustrated and angry, or were you just ready to face life head on with a new body?
During that time, I had not made that decision yet. I had planned on keeping it. Of course, I could wiggle my toes. They had it all together. They would go in and press it every day, make sure there was blood circulation, and there was. When I was young, I mean, at that time, I had still very high hopes. I was keeping my leg.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
then after the multiple surgeries, because he did go back in multiple times, it was just a decision I made that right there. You're very self-conscious about that. You're very self-conscious about your leg. Even being that young, I was very self-conscious about it. Sure.
We're very self-conscious about our bodies, whether it's a prosthetic or not, right?
Yeah,
I feel like everyone has such image issues nowadays. So, I mean, that's such a
absolutely.
powerful thing though to think about. So, you lost just the one leg, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you lost the one leg and then you were able to walk with it right away is what you were telling me, right? Okay.
Yeah, it has to heal up and everything, so it was like a year later, but then I was fit
Okay.
in for prosthesis, and
Okay. Yeah.
yeah, and
You said
they
as soon as you got it, you were up and moving, right?
yeah, that was one of the things. So when they fit it, like, it has the socks and stuff, but they fit me in it, and then I literally walked out of the place with it, and
That's
then never stopped walking from there, so
that's so amazing. So I have to ask because I'm sure there are so many people that are listening and thinking how angry they would be at that truck driver.
mhm.
How did you feel? Did you have anger towards him, or did you know that that just wasn't gonna serve you well to even hold the anger?
Oh, no, I never really felt the anger towards him, honestly, or the whole situation. For one, I was in a whole lot of pain, so I feel a lot of not that much of that at that time, but even afterwards, I never really harbored anger against him at all. It wasn't intentional. That's the thing.
Yeah.
It was just a car accident. So,
That's such a beautiful thing. I don't even know if you recognize, James, like, how beautiful that is to see that accidents and mistakes happen, and it doesn't serve you and it doesn't serve him to be angry, right? Like, you and I both know how important it is to live in this place of gratitude and a higher vibration. And being angry with him wouldn't bring your life back. It wouldn't change that day. And also, we know how important it is to just live out life as it comes and that everything is happening as it should for us. So, when you look back on that day, what do you think was the purpose of that day? Because we know there's a purpose, right? There's always a purpose in everything that happens in our lives. Nothing happens to just happen. So what do you think was the purpose?
well, that day, it was the start of an extraordinary journey for me, honestly. A lot of people look back at and they say, "Oh, I feel so bad for you." Honestly, this made me the person who I am today. So it was an extraordinary adventure that started that day. Sure, it was tough, but it's what happened to me, and this is me, and I accepted it right pretty quickly. Of course, I was very self-conscious about the prosthesis, wearing shorts and stuff like that, just the teasing and everything kids do and bullying in schools. No one wants to be different. They want to like shelter themselves away from that. There was a lot of that, especially being that young. I just got over that eventually, and it got to the point where, look, this is me. You guys need to accept who I am. So,
Well, yeah, nobody wants to be different, but at the same time, nobody wants to be perfect, really, right?
sure.
If we're perfect, then we don't even learn what it's like to be any other way. And then you're living in such a polarized life, essentially, right? Like it's really good for us to experience both sides of things always.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So when did you start to put on the weight? Because I know that's another part of your story where you put on, you said over 100 pounds.
I graduated college like right around 26 and was married, started having kids right away. And of course, just the domestic life, really, that's when I started putting the weight on. But I always kind of fluctuated around a certain weight. But then in my elder years, I just started really having a few health challenges and just being more sedentary
Hmm.
and just started putting on a lot of weight. I was working downtown Dallas, so there was a lot of walking, and then COVID happened, and I was in my house,
Oh, wow. Okay.
all the time, 7 days a week for 2.5 years. That's when I put on the pounds.
Well, that
And
makes total sense, right? I mean, you were kind of forced into this sedentary life because all of a sudden your job is just sitting at home and you don't have that same walking that you had in your life every day. So, what inspired you to lose the weight and how hard was that? And was it harder because you had a prosthetic leg?
oh, absolutely. It was a challenge with the prosthetic, especially being overweight. One of the things that happened was the end of 2022. I had contracted COVID and then got scars on my lungs. And my doctor had told me that you have to lose weight because of the scars and everything, because it's going to be very detrimental to you. That was my why, really, to push myself very hard to lose the weight.
Mhm.
But then back to the question about the prosthetic and being overweight, wearing a prosthetic, especially the type that I had, it was like a suction prosthetic, and then you develop blisters and stuff. So you can't just walk a lot because you get a lot of blisters. So you just can't walk every day. Like I have days when I was at the office that I would walk a whole lot and I would get them and that would be fine. But when you consistently do it and trying to lose weight, it just doesn't work. So one of the things that I did is I would just wake up and say, "Hey Alexa, play this music," and then just dance. I
Aw,
just move
yeah.
my body, dance. I wouldn't walk a whole lot. I wouldn't worry about the problems that I have with that. I would just dance. That's kind of how my health journey started, is just moving my body in the morning and dancing and stuff.
It's really amazing that when it was hard, you didn't just quit. You found another way. It was like, okay, walking is hard to do for long periods because of the blisters. So what else can I do? Because you and I have talked about this, and I talk about it a lot, that a lot of people get stuck in this mindset of it is what it is, or I was just dealt these cards and this just is my life. Now, it is what it is a true statement when there are no other possibilities. But that's the key, I think, for people to get over this hurdle wherever they're stuck in their lives. If they're wanting something different and they're feeling stuck, what is it that is stopping them? People have to stop, take the time, reflect, and figure out, why am I not where I want to be? Why? And then ask yourself, what can I do to get there? And if you do not know, that is when you find somebody else that does know, because I promise you, there is someone else on this earth that has been through the same thing and they do have an answer for you. So, just like you did, you found an answer. It was like, the walking is too hard with all the blisters. I can't do this for long periods all day, every day. I need to lose this weight. What can I do? Dancing, like that was comfortable for you and that worked. And that's amazing.
Then I found an adaptive dance class that was offered on Facebook because I started doing this dance stuff and showing interest in it. All of a sudden, this thing pops up. So I joined the adaptive dance class, and it's like people in wheelchairs and stuff and different handicaps, but she's teaching us the dance class. So I got involved in that and just connected with them. And it was really good because then I got the stretches and everything, and
Mhm.
that really loosened me up to start doing more physical activities and things outside.
I love how it really comes full circle though, right? It's like your body needed to learn these stretches and do all these things. So it's like you had all this extra weight, you needed to lose it. And so then divinely, it was like, you can't just walk. Like you were divinely forced to find another answer to physical activity. And so then you did. And then that physical activity led to more. And I think that's such a key thing for people to recognize that when we get to this fork in the road or we feel like we're at a stopping point and, life just isn't giving us what we think we need or what we think we want, it really is giving us exactly what we need. And it helps us to make that transition into the next phase of our life to grow and be even better and stronger. So I love how you're sharing that because I really think that's such a big thing that people need to learn and to understand when they think that these blocks are just being dropped in front of them and they're being held back in their lives. It's like, no, no, I promise. Like everything is happening for a reason and it's so meant to be the way it is. It's you though that is stopping yourself, right? When we aren't taking the time to ask why these things are happening and reflect on them.
I
You
love
wrote
the way you put that too. That's a perfectly way to put it for sure.
Thank you. So you wrote a book, James. Can you tell us about the book a little bit?
Yeah. So I went through this thing in 2023 where I lost the weight. And actually when I wrote the book, I'd not lost as much as I had now because I continued the journey and then got to the 100 pounds. But I wrote the book at the end of that year. I haven't told you the story about my mom, have I yet? Like when we were going through the health crisis with her.
How that inspired you. That's
Yeah.
all you really said.
My mom, she ended up with lung cancer, and that's what we were battling.
Okay.
And she had just gotten a port put in her heart for chemo. And,
Mhm.
and I had went to see her that night, and I was praying with her. My mom was struggling to breathe and everything. She has 6 kids, and we all went to the emergency room when the first thing happened. And then it was just a continuous thing. And at a certain point, she got hospitalized. And I told my mom at that point, I plan on doing something really big to honor her. And I just really think that it was like an amazing thing that she did, raising us kids and leading me to Jesus at 11. And it's really what's made me the person who I am today. And that's what I did. I wrote the book about my mom. And she's not really my biological mom. God placed her in my heart, placed me in her heart.
Well,
And so it's about my mom. And then it's about the health journey.
so it sounds like a lot of the inspiration for it came from your mom and
Yeah,
seeing her and realizing it was time to make a change.
exactly. Yeah.
James, the other night we talked a lot about the subconscious mind and how it plays such a big part in getting well and staying well and overcoming tragedies. What can you share with my guests about the subconscious mind and the part that it played in your getting well?
One of the things that we had talked earlier about was the waking up at 5 a.m. That's a real difficult thing, right? Especially when you get started. When you get into it and you just do it without thinking about it, you wake up pretty easily at 5 a.m. But I would always, when I would wake up, I would just turn on like something very super motivational. So that would just keep that whole self-talk turned off that says, "Oh, you want to stay in bed? Like, no, it's so comfortable, it's warm." You just immediately wake up, turn on something loud. I would get up and then walk down the hill at 5 a.m. and start picking up golf balls to hit down my hill.
Mhm.
So I would turn on Carrie Underwood, "You Are a Champion." And if you ever listen to one of those words, or you ever listen to that song, like it makes you get up and get stuff done.
Can you explain the whole purpose of getting up at 5 a.m.? We talked about it's about you, right? It's about
Mhm.
giving you your best self.
So there's a lot of talk about the 5 a.m. club, and a lot of people want to do it, but really you have to do it 7 days a week, because the whole true idea behind the 5 a.m. club is truly aligning yourself with nature. Because you think about it, it gets dark around 9 or so, and then the light starts coming up around 5, 6 a.m. So you're actually sleeping during the nighttime when you're supposed to, and then waking up when the sun's up, because your body naturally produces melatonin when it gets dark, and then the sun, vitamin D on your skin when you're awake. So you're truly aligning yourself with nature, but then also you're giving yourself your self-development time, your best self, instead of waking up at, 7 a.m., 8 a.m., going right to work by 9 a.m. You're never giving yourself a chance to have any personal development time in the morning doing that. Where if you wake up at 5 a.m., the first 2 or 3 hours are yours. And
It's
so
so
you're,
good. This is so good. I'll be honest, I haven't really thought about it. And as a mom, my time has actually been more so nights when my husband is home. My time alone to meditate and have my own time has been at night. He puts the kids to bed and then I get my quiet time. But hearing this, I fully understand the purpose of it because I have told him, I'm like, this is great and I love it and I appreciate it that he gives me this time. But sometimes it's frustrating because I'm like, I'm so exhausted. Like, I could fall asleep during these meditations. Like, I would love to have morning hours to actually be able to stay awake during the meditation and things like that. And so it's true. Our best selves are going to be in those first waking hours. And if we can dedicate those moments and those hours to our self development, we are going to gain so much more than we would with our exhausted 8 p.m. self. So that's gold. I love it. That's so good.
yeah, absolutely.
Um,
Yeah, I experienced that same thing with work, trying to start a side hustle or starting a job. When you get done working, you just want to relax. The whole weight of the day is on you. Your energy is just a bit drained. And that's the time you don't want to just jump into something, and you don't really have your fresh self. And that's the key there, right? It's like you're focusing what you're wanting to do for your personal journey with your fresh self versus with your drained self at the end of the day, right?
yeah, the outcome is just not going to be the same. I mean, you can do it and you can get it done because I'm not saying don't try,
Yeah.
but you do deserve that, right? To have those morning hours dedicated to yourself if you can, at least a few days a week, right? Not all of us are maybe able to do that depending on where our lives are at with small children and such. But it makes sense and it's something great to remember for maybe when the kids are out of the house and you can do it and you haven't been up all night or something. So, James, I also wanted you to share the story you were sharing with me about how you ran for the first time.
I'm so happy you asked that question, because it's very close to my heart. And honestly, if there's amputees out there listening, I'm sure that they would resonate with this. You lose a leg, running days are pretty limited as far as running. And I was always a very athletic person. I played basketball. I loved running. It was one of those things that they talk about PTSD. I dreamed about that a lot, like running right after the accident. I would dream about it. When am I going to run again? Oh, I'm running, in my dream. And then, of course, you think about it and you remember your dream. And then I see these carbon fiber C things that come out, and these sprinters are running on them. And I'm like, oh, if you get one of those, I could actually run now. But I don't have a reason to get one of those. Those look expensive. I've never been able to get one myself. What happened was I ended up getting these computerized knees, but none of them really had the function to run until I got this knee that I have. And it actually, it has AI built into it, but then it also has the sensors and the hydraulics that will actually start running with you. It'll kick it even faster. And when I first got the leg, I was 100 pounds overweight. So, of course, I had the technology, but I was not fit for it. I couldn't run with it. I actually did attempt it. Of course, I'm gonna try it, but,
Yeah.
it was it just like the body and the I just hadn't really got with it yet. And I started going through this health journey. I started losing the weight, and that's when it happened. After I losing about a 35 pounds or so, what happened was I was working from home. I was sitting and I had a Teams call coming up and I only had about 10 minutes and I had to run down and feed the horses. Well, I was going down to feed the horses. I ended up running down. And then, of course, I was like, oh my God, I just ran on this leg for the first time. And I was like, I've got to record this. So then I get my phone, I record it after the Teams meeting, though. I did go to the Teams meeting, finish it. Then I went outside and I recorded it and I sent it to my kids. I was like, kids, I just ran for the first time.
You
So
were probably not very focused in that meeting because I bet you were just thinking like, I'm going to do this again. I can't wait. I record.
I was like, I've got to record this. This is the
Yeah.
first time. I've got to record it for sure.
And it's also such a big thing for people listening to think about and reflect on. And even for yourself, you probably were like, whoa, big reminder here. Like, we really box ourselves in sometimes with our mindset, right? And
Mm.
you weren't thinking, you just weren't thinking, and it just happened. So sometimes we can hold ourselves back so much with these preconceived ideas that we have that we are putting into our subconscious mind. So when we are not thinking and we're not listening to any of our subconscious thoughts and we just let go, things can happen, miracles can happen.
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
yeah, that's definitely what happened that day.
And you bring up that subconscious mind thing again. The thing is, our subconscious does hold us back. It's like constantly playing these movies, reminding us of the past and saying, oh, you can't do that because of this or whatever. The thing about your subconscious, you constantly holding you back to safety. I would use strong words against things I didn't want to eat just to keep my subconscious from eating it. And I would just call it poison. And it works. Like I'd say, I'm not eating that poison. I'm not, even if it's not poison, I'm just saying that's poisonous
Yeah.
because the thing is, on my health journey, that one of the things that my philosophy is God's the best architect on what we should eat. The things that was intended for us naturally is
Yeah,
what
he
we
just
should
made a
be
box
eating.
of cereal.
Huh?
He didn't make a box of cereal.
Exactly. So those chemicals are really, really bad for you. And they may not be poison today, but it's causing your body to build up fat and it's bad for you.
Well, but to your point, our cells in our body are not able to filter out the weight and the fat when it's burdened with the chemicals that are in a lot of cereals and various products, right? The dyes and the things you can't even read on the box. I mean, I try to, if I can't read something, I'm not eating it. Like, I can't pronounce it, then it's definitely not going in my body.
Right.
But I mean, that's a good way to put it. Like you said, if God didn't make it, then it's probably not good for us, right? If it's something that we couldn't just grow ourselves and create on our own and mix up in our kitchen, and we don't have to have some science lab to create it, so it's probably not best for us if it's something we can't make on our own.
And they're commercially growing it so fast, they're having to spray paint it the color it's supposed to be, and then it doesn't have any taste, so there's, like, nothing there. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot even the vegetables, like some of the commercially grown vegetables aren't great that you get at the store. I would rather grow them in my own backyard
Yeah.
because they
Well,
just come out full of taste, you know?
well, then a lot of the bioengineered ingredients, like that's not from God now, is it? It's not. That's not.
Oh,
I'm like, that's not meant for us. And I hope we can slowly all start inching our way back to things that were divinely made for us and stop allowing some of these things on the shelves. Now we're really getting into the health stuff, but
I know, for sure. It's
there,
important, though.
no, it really, really is. It's very important to me. So your mindset, when all of that happened, did you reflect, like when you ran down to the horses to feed them and you ran for the first time, did that kind of reset your mindset a little bit where you were like, this whole time I could have been doing this, but I have been holding myself back? Like, was that kind of a reset for you?
I knew that my leg could run. I'd already set, like, I'm running on this leg. Like, I'd already set that as my mind. I knew I was going to eventually run on it. I had just not honestly focused on it really.
Uh,
But,
There probably something holding you back though, right? I mean, like, if it was on your mind to do it and something you were wanting to do, like, there had to be something in your subconscious mind that maybe you were subconsciously a little bit, like, scared that it wasn't gonna work, you were gonna fall, or something was, right? Because otherwise, I mean, why not just take off and try?
yeah, I think I had just felt I wasn't ready yet, but then I just tried it and it happens.
Yeah. That's amazing. So, what do you talk about when I know you do public speaking as well, right? Uh,
Mhm.
what is part of your talk? Like, what are your big points that you like to drive home to the audience?
The main thing is perseverance. There's a Bible verse that says the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature, not lacking anything. And that's what I think that I have gone through really. It's like, you get this major challenge and setback and you just persevere through it. Right. And I feel like that's how I do everything. Honestly, I just persevere through it. It's like, if you hold yourself back, it's never going to get done. So you just have to take the challenge and take it as you come. The thing is, everything that comes towards us is for us.
Mhm.
We just have to meet the challenge head on and solve for whatever's in front of us and learn through it.
So, what would be your advice for somebody that is a little stuck and they need to persevere, but they don't know how, they don't know what to do, and they're feeling overwhelmed? Because I think that can be a common feeling people have when they have something major that they have to push through.
Hmm.
Whether it's losing 100 pounds, that's a lot, and that can be overwhelming in someone's mind, right? Fighting cancer, that can be very overwhelming. Learning to walk again like you did. I mean, there's a lot of things that can be very overwhelming to people, and the overwhelm sometimes can take over their world and shut them down.
Hmm.
What would be your advice to push through that overwhelm?
I think the best thing to do, especially if you get into that really downward spiral of worry and doubt about something, is just to find something to disrupt it. So you have to disrupt that self talk, the worry and doubt, because the thing, there's always a way. And if you're stuck and you can't find the way, like, you need to just reach out to someone too. Maybe a support group, maybe other amputees in the area, or your doctor, your prostheticist, anyone that's kind of faced these challenges and how they've overcome them. Try not to get stuck like in that anxiety and self talk and doubt and things. Like you were saying before, I think you said this earlier, like, someone on earth has faced the challenge you're facing right now, and someone
Sometimes
can help you.
And sometimes I think it's ego a little bit, right? Like, people don't want to share what's going on. They don't want somebody else to know that their life isn't perfect or that they're struggling with whatever they're struggling with. And so they rather just keep quiet about it. But I think we look so much stronger when we're able to put that ego aside and ask for help and make the changes, because when people see you push through that struggle, doesn't matter how you did it. And that's really what matters. And so when we just choose to stay stuck, because it is a choice, then we aren't going to move forward if we make that choice. So we really do have to, like you said, reach out to somebody else. There's absolutely somebody else that has been through it. So don't let that ego come into play and tell you not to try to change.
For sure.
So what else would you recommend for people getting over that overwhelm besides just like reaching out to other people and support groups? What would you recommend for them to start having a mindset shift?
So on the mindset healing journey, I can tell you that story too. It's really a good one. I had this intern that was working for me and we ended up hiring him. Then he ended up on my team. I had multiple teams. I had this web development team, and Derek He was a very strong developer, even though he was pretty young. He started talking to me about these Shopify stores. He's like, I started this store here. Check it out. I'm going to be this and that or whatever. I ended up getting an offer to go somewhere else and then coming back to my company. But he had just turned in his notice because his store had made like 200K a month.
Mhm.
Here's this kid is 24. He has a Shopify store doing 200K. And I'm sitting here like, what am I doing? I need to be building something like this. Like this he's now got the store to whatever. So that kind of started me on the journey. I was really scouring the internet, just trying to find the answers. How do I get a business started? How do I do this? And I ended up getting in one of those Grant Cardone 10X things and listened to that. And that got me connected to Clubhouse. And I discovered this Our Mindset. And that's where Manny Fernandez basically got me the keys to what the mindset thing is. It's how the brain works, right? That's what we don't know, or what I didn't know before that is like how the brain works, the subconscious mind and everything. And then once I learned that, it was just a early morning practice, to be honest with you, starting with gratitude and things like that. But then also, I wanted to tell you about this video that he told us to watch, which is on YouTube. Anyone can go up there and pull it up and listen to it and
Mhm.
watch it, because I think that's important. Because when Muhammad Ali is emphatically saying that he's going to win and he is the best, I would wake up every morning and I would tell myself, I am the best. I am the best. And I would sit there and listen to Muhammad Ali say it over and over. And I would replay it and I would replay it and I would replay it. I am the best. I am the best. And really, it's just like that. You've got to unwire all of that programming that's told you you weren't the best, right?
Yes.
You've got to take all of those words back. And really, that's what it's about. It's about taking all those words back until you get to the point to where you are the best.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, I mean, that's what I talk about with a lot of people is just rewiring that thought that you've had. If you thought you weren't the best or you thought you couldn't do it, you can change those thoughts and we can go back in time and we can relive experiences and we can live them differently with a different perspective.
mhm,
Because when we look back on the events that happen in our lives, we look back and we watch it like a movie in our mind, right? And the way we watch it is based on the perception that we have of the world and how things operate and work. But we all know we can change, right? The way we see the world as a 4-year-old child versus a 30-year-old adult or older is not the same. We don't see things the same. Our perception changes and can continue to change. And so, however you viewed it at a certain point, you can change that. You can go back, rewatch it, and view it differently, which can have dramatic results on your health and your mindset and everything. So, I'm glad you shared that because that's definitely, I think, one of the key things for moving forward is shifting that mindset, doing some gratitude, doing some meditating, reaching out to people like you initially said. So, all those things are really great tips for people to get over that overwhelm and move on.
awesome. Just what you just said, like actually triggered another story.
You have so many stories.
And it's a really good one too. I mean, this
I'm
is a
here for it.
story. All of these things are wired and blocked and programmed in your brain. You don't even have access to them. Like you don't even know they're there, honestly.
Mhm.
And what happened was there was this thing to where I had trouble speaking. A lot of people out there are probably like thinking, "Oh, what is this guy talking about? Like he just will say everything. Like why he never has trouble speaking." But honestly, I did. Like a lot of times somebody would ask me something and I don't know, I would just clam up. I was on a podcast one time and someone actually asked me the question when I froze up. They said, "What is your earliest thought right now?" And that took me back to when I was 4 years old. So suddenly I thought there was something about when I was 4 years old and I just really dug into it. And really it was God that said, you need to reconnect with your biological mom.
Wow.
And so I did. Because the thing is, I had always pushed her away because just the whole story from when I was a child and she really never come to see us or anything. And I would always held her, arm's length. Finally, here I am over 50. And I was like, of course, I'm going to connect with my biological mom. So I did. I called her. We started talking. And then what happened was she calls me on Father's Day, wish me happy Father's Day. And I'm talking to her on the phone. And really, to be honest with you, I think that I had always held her so far away that I really never had an adult or even a heart to heart or a real emotional conversation with her. And that day I did. And I said, Mom, I really miss Vince. And she said, well, call him. You've got his number. And I was like, I was 4 years old and you took Vince. He was my older brother.
Okay.
She took Vince back to California. And then I basically grew up without my older brother. And I was like, missed him. You
Mhm.
know, it was, we kind of had a cry there and everything. And I got emotional about it. But it was the strangest thing, though. It was like, I felt like I grew up in that moment. And
Yeah.
it was like that little 4-year-old boy was awaiting to tell his mom that that was a
It's really powerful when we can go back to those moments and see them differently. I've done the same and I see things very differently than how I thought they played out as a child.
exactly.
And I just pray that my kids can do the same one day because they don't see it the way I see it. Like
Mm,
we have moments as parents where we're overwhelmed and there's times where I feel like I'm not my best self as a mom and I want to be better. And I hope that they don't hold that against me. And I hope that they can understand that it's not them. It's just sometimes there's a lot of overwhelm that can happen in different areas of life. And
mm.
sometimes when the kids are poking at you all day long, you can only take so much. And then eventually you're just like, I'm losing my mind. But it's not that you don't love them. And sometimes I think kids will take it on as, oh, my mom doesn't love me or my dad doesn't love me because they yelled at me or, because they said, go to your room or they said, give me a minute. Hopefully people can start to see their childhoods a little bit differently than they do.
It just changed my perspective completely, to be honest. It's weird to experience that. Like it was exactly 50 years later because I was 54 and then I was 4 to 54. When you see a lot of people really mad and tyrant over tiny things, like that's that child coming out, right? Th-
Yeah.
That's what that is. I feel like I don't want to expose my child too much. I feel like I control my emotions enough. I feel like I grew up in that moment, though.
When you mention people getting overwhelmed or losing it over those tiny things, it that is definitely something that really hits me because when I went through my own tragedy of dying several times and um, facing the fact that I could easily not be here, I I really took the time to think about those little things that we so often get angry over, whether it's just a car ding or running a few minutes late or just somebody cutting you off. At
Mm.
the end of the day, like these are just such small things. And for me, I don't want those to have any bearing on the way that I feel. I don't want those teeny tiny moments to affect my emotions. Like you're saying, I mean, they're too small. They're
You
too
you you
small.
wanna feel them, though. You wanna feel them. You just don't wanna react like a
But
child
you
to
can,
them. You know? Like,
but you
that's what I
can,
say. I always try to embrace it when I feel it, like, I try to feel it all the way to my end of my toes and the tips of my fingers, because you wanna feel it in a
well, you,
process. So you don't wanna leave it unprocessed, that's what I'm saying.
well, but you can recognize what is happening and process through it. You can recognize what is happening and make the decision. What emotion am I going to attach right now to what has happened? I actually had somebody cut me off last week. They just pulled like right out in front of me. And I'll be honest, the first thing that actually happened, so he did that and I pulled over to the other lane to try to avoid him hitting me and it worked. Luckily, there was not a car next to me. But right after that, my first thought And words out of my mouth were, "Thank you, God."
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, I've come a long way because I feel like the old me would have been really ticked off. And my first thought was just like, thank you, God. We are both safe. He is safe. I am safe. The person to the right of me, like nobody got into an accident. And then following that, the guy rolled down his window to tell me that I didn't have my blinker on. And I actually did. But by the time he pulled in front of me, I had just turned it off because I had pulled over. And he actually pulled out in front of me from a turn lane with a solid white line that he was not supposed to be moving out of.
Oh, no.
That's not even legal. So he was the one at fault for sure. But either way, so there was definitely a moment, like you're saying, where it's like I was processing it and I was like, I definitely had some adrenaline pumping just because it was like, oh my gosh, almost got into a car accident. And then this man's trying to blame me. But I kept my focus on everybody is safe. We are safe. And then I actually just prayed for him because I felt like he needed some mindset shifting of his own. And so I was like, I pray that he can shift his perspective and just have some gratitude that both of us ended up safe in that moment.
That's so beautiful that in that moment you're gonna pray for him. Like that's the reaction we're supposed to make though, right? We're supposed to reach for the good, not to like jump out and like dukes up, whatever, like you see on commercials all the time.
Yes. And that is what I am hoping to inspire with this show because I feel like the world is very much in the me movement. It's all about me and I'm going to fight for me and I want everything to work out for me and we're not in this together. Even though COVID everybody tried to say we're better together, it doesn't seem like anybody is actually taking that on. So, it was a nice try with COVID that people tried to be better together, but actually I felt like it got worse because people were angry with people for all their different feelings around COVID and the way that they wanted to live during COVID. So that's a whole nother thing I could get going on. But
I have a beautiful COVID story though, Andrea. You
yeah.
have to let me tell this story.
Okay, share your beautiful COVID story, and then we probably
This
should
is a
wrap it up.
beautiful one. This is okay. So COVID happens and my middle daughter, Courtney, she has Miley and I'm working in Dallas. It's like 2 hours from our house. So I actually have a work apartment down there. I'm working down there so much. So I haven't got to spend that much time with my granddaughter. Then all of a sudden, March happens, COVID hits. I come back to my house. My daughter's living in our house with Miley. She's 8 months old. So then I have 2.5 years. I basically get to watch my granddaughter grow up from a baby to crawling, walking, talking, saying papa. I taught her her first word.
Aw.
It's just like that. I love COVID for that reason that I got to watch my grandbaby grow up and I was right here. She was under my feet the whole time. And then also she inspired the book. The thing about robot leg, which my story is robot leg, how AI reshaped my body, but Miley dubbed my leg robot leg, and
Aw.
her like speaking it and stuff. So that whole story about the granddaughter and everything is in the book too. So I just wanted to share that.
Okay, yes. So, I mean, there's absolutely a lot of good stuff that came from COVID. I mean, I love the Target pickups, I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah.
Um, I credit COVID for that. I'm not saying there was bad in it. I mean, there was. There was good and there was bad, but what I am saying is the saying of better together that people were really trying to embody was funny because it was like we're better together if and only if you're going to do things my way. And, if you're going to live the way that I think you should live during this time period. And so it's just interesting. And so it kind of caused some divide. And I feel like we still have that, though, in this world, aside from COVID. We still have that mindset where it's like we're good together if we're all going to do it the same way. But if we're not going to do it the same way, then I don't like you and you better watch out. And that's what we need to get rid of. That's
Yeah.
like you're saying, when people trying to duke it out on the corner. Um, no, let's just pray for them and move on. Like
Exactly.
it doesn't benefit anybody to hold the anger in your heart. So
For sure.
with that, let's wrap this up. But James, let's tell everybody where they can find you and your book, whatever you want to share with the audience.
Sure. My Facebook is my name, and then it's dot 2024. So it's 2024, James.Fomby. And then I actually have an Instagram. It's my company. It's agentry_software.
Do you
And
want to spell that for people just in case?
yeah, do I?
You
Agentry, AGENTRY_SOFTWAREYE. So agentry software.
okay. Do you have a email you want to share? You don't have to share.
You can email me at my name at Gmail, and it's jamesjfomby@gmail.com.
Okay.
So my name, perfect.
Well, thank you so much for being a guest today and sharing so much
Sure.
personal information about your life and how you've gone through so much. I think it will be very valuable and helpful for so many.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Andrea. I've had a wonderful time. It was great speaking with you about my story. I really
Yeah.
appreciate you inviting me on.
Yeah. Of course. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Andrea.